Jeff Koinange, an example of resilience, performance, and excellence in the media industry. A man that would have made it to the top of his career in the biggest media house in the world, the CNN. But his career was thrown in the gutter back in the year 2008 on certain allegation. Now today, allow me to get deep into the story that led to Jeff Koinange being fired from CNN, and what was his response, and what story did Jeff Koinange give on why he was fired from CNN. In May 2008, CNN's star Africa reporter Jeff Koinange left the network in a huff, or rather was smoked out after several allegations spanning from sexual to bribery. According to former confidant Mariana Bridi, a Swiss businesswoman, Koinange faced several sexual affairs at the network, with the Delta story crowning his downfall. The Delta story, supposed to have crowned his career as a journalist, became the genesis of his downfall after the Nigerian government accused Jeff Koinange of paying people to pose for CNN cameras over the oil kidnappings in the Niger Delta. The report aired in February 2007 showed Koinange being surrounded by masked goons in speedboats, described as enforcers with the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta, who later took him and his crew to a group of Filipinos who they were holding hostages. Jeff Koinange, as I speak right now, he is one of the most celebrated journalists in Kenya. But I remind you, if it's not for this story called the Niger Delta of the year 2008, Jeff Koinange would be the example of resilience, the greatest African journalist to have crossed the boundaries of this country. Right now, we all look up to none other than Larry Madowo. But Jeff Koinange was there first. And Jeff Koinange had the most promising career, more than even what Larry Madowo had. Now, there were claims that Koinange was involved in a romantic relationship with Brina, whom he had promised publicity through CNN for a book she was writing about corruption in Kenya. Brina had co-authored a book of alleged corruption and murder among Kenya's political elite. Brina was a star witness in an inquiry in the murder of Dr. Robert Ouko, who served as Kenya's foreign minister. After a failed publicity story by Koinange, Brina decided to take revenge by exposing email correspondence between Koinange and her that floated new details about the Delta story and steamy love affair between them that led to the fall of Koinange's career at CNN. In one of the undated emails published on a now defunct website, Koinange said, "Of course, we had to pay certain people to get the story. Delta story, I mean. You don't get such a story without bribing." But this is not what broke the camel's back. Koinange and Brina met in a lobby of a hotel in London in February 2008 to discuss the story about her book. However, things turned out different as Brina accused Jeff of rape. And I shall quote it. "I was still in the bathroom when he entered my room. Not after 15 minutes as I asked him, but after less than 5 minutes. Without any warning, he opened the sliding doors of my bathroom, pulled me out telling me don't feel shy with me. And then, the big shock, he was already naked. He then pushed me on the bed and in seconds tried to enter me. Now, I struggled and asked him several times to stop, but he forced himself into me," Brina wrote on a blog. In an email sent before the pair met, Koinange wrote, You have been wined and dined by the highest and mightiest of all, and then little old me comes along and makes you go crazy, Brina replied by saying, one day you will have to fulfill all my dreams and my promises. Does that not scare you? However, Koinange denied the allegations, claiming that the claims was a result of the failed story. Obviously, she saw publicity wasn't going to come as quickly as she wanted. It was a vindictive sort of thing that she wanted to expose our communications, said Koinange in a previous interview. Brina said, I do not like to be cheated. I don't like cheating. That's when I fight back. She also said while she may have played a part in Koinange's departure from CNN, she cannot be held totally responsible for it. She says my letter to CNN was the last nail in the coffin, but the coffin was already prepared. Several months after leaving CNN, Koinange was hired as a news anchor by a new Kenyan TV station, the K24. He would later join KTN, where he was unceremoniously sacked after a rape comment in his show, Jeff Koinange Live. Currently, he is a news anchor with the Citizen TV and a radio morning show presenter with Hot 96 Radio. During one of his morning shows at Hot 96, Koinange said, my boss called me and asked, Jeff, where are you? I said I was driving on the highway and he asked me, pull off the highway. The boss says, there is too much crap. The Nigerians think you stage managed a story and there is this woman. We can't sustain this, so we are going to have to let you go. Remembering that this was one of the most promising journalists to have ever come out of the 254 to work in CNN. He was the first of a kind. Now, getting back to him, he said that he quit CNN and that he was not fired. Now, when CNN Star Africa reporter Jeff Koinange left the network at the head of 2008, his sudden departure was widely blamed on the content of a steamy email correspondence with a former confidant, Mariana Bridi, as I said, a 66-year-old Swiss businesswoman. She had waged a campaign to expose Jeff, publishing email exchanges between the two of them on a blog. And she sent a complaint to his boss at CNN's Atlanta HQ, claiming Koinange had admitted to bribery and hoaxing or coercing an exclusive report from Nigeria. She attached an email from Koinange to her, which read, of course, we aim to pay certain people to get the story. You do not get such a story without bribing. Now, in an exclusive interview with the First Post, the 41-year-old who reported for the Atlanta-based news network for 6 years from Darfur, New Orleans, and Niger admitted, I have let my wife down. I have let the people who care about what I do down. The report aired in February 2009. Koinange being surrounded by masked gunmen. This is the report that aired in 2008, and that is what led to the fall of his career. Now, I want to look at the finer details of what really led to him being fired from CNN. Now, through a series on Hot 96 FM, a story a day, Jeff confessed that at the peak of his career at CNN, his boss at the Global News Network fired him on phone in May 2007 as he drove on the highway. I told you that. Now, Jeff had in early 2007 done the Niger story, which became a hit globally for its interviews with the gang who had kept even government security at bay. Now, it was an amazing story, and if I were to do it again, I wouldn't change a thing, Jeff said, defending the story 10 years later. Now, That was in 2017. He says, I had researched for the story for more than a year, gotten in touch with the gangs down there, and they gave us permission. We flew down there and we went down deep into the swamp to interview men with no story. Now, in his report, Koinange accompanied masked men of the MEND, Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta guerrillas, to camp where they were holding the number of Filipinos hostages, as I said. Now, some of the big stories Koinange had covered for CNN in Africa were the cases in Darfur, the civil wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and the story in Niger, for which he won an Emmy Award. Koinange has also covered news outside of Africa, including extensive reporting on the aftermath of the Hurricane Katrina, as well as the Iraq War. I mean, this man is an example of from grace to grass and from grass to grace again. Because Jeff was fired from the greatest media house in the world. But he recollected himself again to working as one of the greatest, in one of the biggest media stations in the country. But that is not what we are talking about. The stories that Jeff Koinange was doing for CNN were stories that had global impact. I think he still misses that until today. Because man, and he was not that Jeff you see nowadays. This one is a old man. Then he was a daring man. He would get in the middle of war to cover stories. You also what Larry Madowo was doing during the demonstrations in Kenya. You have seen what he is doing in Haiti. You've seen him, I think, in Venezuela, covering those stories. That was the work that Jeff Koinange used to do. But he was relieved because of an affair that he had with a lady. Usiwahi amini mwanamke. Hapana amini mwanamke. Fear women. Jeff Koinange is a testimony.